Welcome to the Joey Pepperoni Show. Listen, I got a lot of questions. Every day I wake up and I'm like, what the hell is really going on? And the more I dig, the weirder it gets. But I don't just sit on this stuff. I turn it into short videos to share with people. Quick hits of truth, red pills, cannonballs, whatever you want to call them. Because I believe one of the most powerful things a person can do is share knowledge. If you learn something real, something that breaks the spell, you owe it to the world to say it out loud. So that's what I do. No filters, no bosses, no gatekeepers, just me, you, and the truth. And tonight, we're kicking things off with a guest who's been through the darkest corners of the rabbit hole, Juliette Bryant. She's not just a witness, she's an Epstein survivor. Maybe even the last survivor willing to speak publicly. She was at Zorro Ranch. She saw the UFOs. She saw the shapeshifting. And tonight, we're diving deep into what they never wanted you to hear. And yes, I drank a little bit too much wine during this, and I speak a little slow. It's very important to listen to what she has to say.
I'm your insurance policy. God.
Juliette Bryant is one of the last Epstein survivors still breathing. And what she's revealing now, they do not want getting out.
My name is Juliette Bryant. I was kidnapped by Jeffrey Epstein from Africa. I was supposed to go model for Victoria's Secret in New York. Instead, I was kidnapped to the island. A lot of frightening things happened there. They don't want the victims speaking out in the media.
She wasn't just trafficked. She was moved from Epstein's island to his private lab in New Mexico. There, she says she woke up paralyzed, naked, on a steel table, hazmat suits around her, no memory, just fear. And here's what's f***ed. At that exact time, on an island in the Bahamas, a company called Clonade claimed they successfully cloned the first human baby. Her name? Eve. It's not a theory. That happened. December 2002. So while Juliette was being trafficked, Epstein was deep in cloning, transhumanism, and eugenics. This wasn't just sex crimes. This was a scientific black site run by a monster. She says he shapeshifted in front of her.
Epstein shapeshifted in front of me. It's very hard to understand if you haven't seen it, but I saw it. It was like a weird hologram and it had like big black eyes.
His form flickered like a hologram. Horns grew from his head. His eyes turned pitch black. Huge, alien, soulless. She didn't see a man. She saw something reptilian.
I think they were taking our eggs. They had the butterfly trust. The human hips are shaped like a butterfly. So if they were taking our eggs, it would make sense. It connects the dots of the butterfly trust.
And the other survivors? Most of them are dead, like Virginia, Carolyn, and Juliette. She's still here. She's still warning us. This is a spiritual war, but nobody ever said the battles weren't going to be physical.
I want to live! I want to die!
I just want to take this moment to thank you for your strength, your courage, and your willingness to speak the truth, because it comes with risks. And, you know, it means more than you know, because we live in a world where too many survivors have been silenced, and some of them permanently. So you're still standing, still speaking, and still exposing what really happened. Not just on the island, but like at Zorro Ranch and beyond that. So your story, it's not just important, it's vital. And it helps wake people up. And it helps shine a light on the darkness that they've tried so hard to keep hidden. And it's not easy, but you being here and speaking about it is proof that their grip is slipping. So from me and from everyone who's going to watch this, and from anyone out there also who's still afraid to speak, thank you. And you're not alone.
Thank you so much, Joey. You know, thank you for standing up for myself and other survivors, and also just standing up for justice. And thank you for all the amazing videos you make, you know, putting everything into perspective for people, because this is a very complicated, dark story. You know, what these people have been up to, that's why they've been hiding everything. So thank you so much for just standing up for myself and other victims, and for caring. And thank you to everyone for listening and caring too.
No problem. It's our mission to expose everything that happened. And that's why we're doing this. We just gotta expose them. Because your story literally is the proof. It connects the dots. It makes sense to me, everything. Especially the shape-shifting. Like, I 100% believe that.
Well, I 100% saw it. That's the frightening thing. If someone else told me that, I wouldn't actually believe it. I'd be like, I think, but I would think maybe the person was on drugs. Or the scary thing is that the time I was at Epstein was when I was my most lucid, because I started drinking alcohol when I was like a teenager, and smoking marijuana. And when I was around Epstein, I wasn't allowed any alcohol, any marijuana. So people think I was on drugs. It was actually when I was at my most lucid.
Yeah, people always say that, like, oh, she must have been on drugs or something like that. Like, but to your knowledge, you weren't.
No, not to my life. And also, I know when I've been spiked with drugs, I can feel them. I feel things very strongly. Um, you know, I'm highly sensitive, which I saw a therapist who almost thought maybe I've got a bit of autism. A lot of people do. My little boy's got autism. And maybe I've also got a dash of autism. Maybe a lot of us do. The ones that feel too much, and it also goes down to the bloodlines, which we're obviously going to speak about later.
Oh yeah, it's
But
all about the bloodlines.
yeah, some people feel a lot.
Let's start at the beginning. How you met him, the person you were before this whole thing happened.
What happened is, my parents got divorced when I was young, and my mum was having a hard time with 3 kids, single mum life. And I started studying psychology and philosophy at the University of Cape Town. But, I didn't have any money to get to university, and I needed to, earn money, of course, like as everyone does. So I started doing modeling because I'd already been scouted previously. I was actually scouted by Elite Model Management when I was 14 years old. I was at a market in Cape Town, at Green Market Square, and a man from Elite Model Management approached me. But my mum and her friend came with me to the casting, and they said that absolutely there's no ways I was allowed to travel. Because, the thing is that they scout a lot of young girls from families that don't have a lot of money. Like my family, we didn't have a lot of money, but my father was paying for us for university, for school and everything. I wasn't as on such a lower income structure as a lot of other people, and I can understand why a lot of other people would fall for it. When their children are young,
So they were
try to
scouting you.
scout me.
So since you were 14, they were scouting you.
Yeah, I've got the newspaper clipping to prove it from 1997. They tried to take me overseas for modeling, Elite Model Management, which later on I realized that was also connected to Jean-Luc Brunel, who was connected to Epstein. They're all connected, But basically then what happened is when I was 20 years old, I started doing modeling on the side, to earn money. And I was out at a restaurant bar one night where they provided like free drinks for models. And a girl called Naja Hill approached me. I didn't know her name at the time, of course. This girl approached me, a beautiful African American model, and she said that there was a man bothering her at the bar, and could she hang out with my friend and I? And obviously, I said, come stand with us, because as a girl, you want to look out for others, And for young, pretty girls, you can sometimes get pestered at a bar. So it's like girl code, like bro code, girl code. You look after each other when someone's being like pestered. But anyway, no man ever actually appeared. It doesn't seem like she really was being pestered at the bar. But anyway, while we were standing there, she told me that she was here modeling, and she had a friend here who was like the king of America. She said his name was Jeffrey Epstein. And she said he was here with Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker, and that he was like the king of America, and he owned his own island in the Caribbean. So and she said that he was best friends with Les Wexner, who owned Victoria's Secret. And she said that I must really meet them because it could really help with my modeling career. So obviously, as a young person without any money, it seemed like a dream come true. I'd never met any celebrity in my life. I almost didn't even believe it was true. But then, sure enough, we drove to Beluga, the restaurant where they were all having dinner. It was just like a 10-minute drive from the bar where we were. And there they all were. They all stood up while they're having dinner and shook my hand. Like I've said before, Bill Clinton, he shook my hand and he started talking to someone else like this. And he kept talking to them, and he just held onto my hand for at least 1 minute. He just kept going, and then he went, "Nice to meet you." So it was kind of very intimidating and daunting. I still remember what I was even wearing that night. It was like, whoa. But the way he held onto my hand for so long was weird. But and then I met Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker, and then this man Jeffrey Epstein. At the time I knew who the others were because of course Kevin Spacey was a very famous actor at that time. He'd made many movies like American Beauty, that was I think made in 1999. There were many movies he was making in the 90s, so he was very well known, of course.
Wait, so who was the person that introduced you to them?
Naja Hill. Her name's Naja Hill.
Who is that? Is that like?
Well,
I don't know who that is.
Well, I only saw her again the next day because we went to go watch the speech with them. They invited me to go watch the speech. Then I never saw her again, but I did some Google research, and it seems like she's like an American Fox News presenter now.
Oh, she's like
So
working with
I'm
Fox.
very much happy because it's stressful for me talking about this.
Well, she has a disgusting name, Naja Hill.
Yeah, you can look her up online, but she's the one who basically introduced me to him.
And you only met her that time?
Yeah, well, that night, I never saw her ever again after this, except for the next day. Because what happened is after we met them at the restaurant, she told me she had my phone number then, and then she said that Epstein thought I'd be great for Victoria's Secret, and he wanted to look at my modeling portfolio. So, of course, I was like, oh, my gosh, so excited, So the next day, but then she said before the modeling casting, Bill Clinton's doing a speech, and do I want to come and watch the speech? So I said, well, yeah, obviously, I wanted to go and watch the speech with them all. So I went to the Cape Grace Hotel where they were staying, and they had these minivans outside, and then they drove to a lower income university in Cape Town where Clinton did a speech. And I sat in the back, the other van with like Naja Hill and the speechwriter. So anyway, when we got there, Clinton gave his speech, and like while he was doing the speech, Kevin Spacey had a handheld device, and he was going like this, like all the way around the room, filming all the students in the hall, because they were just young people all the way around. And he just kept going like this all the way around the hall, and it was a very basic hall, like a very basic setup. It was nothing like you'd expect for a president's speech. It was like plastic chairs, because I was sitting behind Kevin Spacey, like right there. So I saw this handheld device, and you know what? He was even bragging about that handheld device. Someone actually found a video recently, which was pretty interesting, which just proves that, yes, I saw this handheld device. Because you see, in 2002, not all phones could film like they do now. It was like, we had like Nokias, like basic phones. You couldn't really just film
It was
around.
like a Sony CyberShot thingy, like.
Yeah, but it was, I don't know what it was, but there's a video where I'll find it and I'll share it with you. Because someone shared that recently, and I was like, oh my God, there's that handheld device that I saw him filming everyone with. And he was filming all the students in the hall, like going around like this. Like Clinton was in the front, and Clinton was only standing like 10 meters in front of us. It wasn't that far. He was like 10 meters in front of us, and it was like a small stage. Like the stairs were only like this big. It was like 2 stairs like that big. It wasn't like a big stage. There was no one around, no security. I don't know. It was very, very weird. Well, they obviously probably did have security, but it was the kind of place where they didn't really need it, I suppose, because people are so vulnerable. In Africa. I really at the time, thought that, sorry, I've dropped my pen. I thought that they were like humanitarians and that they were, really here to like help people and philanthropists. I really sort of believed that they were doing the right thing. But like looking back on it, like, and also like, as we've become more educated now with the times of the internet, and we were a lot more naive back then, 23 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But then what happened? So then there you are. You've been presented an opportunity. Like your dreams are coming true at this point. You're thinking, oh my God, my dreams are going to come true. This is everything you wanted. And they were telling you you're going to have everything you want. Like these are the connects.
Well, yeah, I just thought like, because my mom always taught me the power of like positive visualization. And, I was hoping that like my dreams were coming true, and I was going to make everything right for my family, and I was going to be able to make a lot of money and help my brothers out. I really thought that it was going to make our lives come right. But anyway, so then after this, we went back to the hotel where they were staying. And then, I got my modeling portfolio from my car, and I walked into the modeling casting that they staged. And when I walked in, it was, they totally staged a modeling casting. There were like 3 women sitting along a long table. It was Sarah Kellen, Andrea Metrovich, and another woman. I think it was Cindy Lopez, but I'm not sure. But the other 2, I'm sure. I know it was Sarah Kellen and Andrea Metrovich. So they looked through my modeling book and they said that they were from Karen Models. And while the modeling casting was happening, Bill Clinton literally walked past me behind and he said, "Hi, everyone." And he walked through and he walked into another room because they were like staying in a big adjoining suite. It was like a presidential suite of this Cape Grace hotel. So it looked like I didn't see the bedrooms, but it appears that they were sharing a suite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, and as he walked in that room, I smelled the most putrid smell I've ever smelled in my life. And the only time I've ever smelled that again was at the governor of New Mexico's ranch in New Mexico. Because Epstein took us there too, myself and another victim. And the New Mexico governor, Bill Richardson, and the vice president came out and they shook our hands and looked us up and down, at myself and the other victim. They met us for like 1 or 2 minutes and they went back into the room. It was a big circular room. And they went back and there was
What was that smell? You said you smelled a horrific smell?
It smelled like feces and urine and vomit.
Did it smell like sulfur?
It smelled like feces, urine, and vomit.
Okay,
Years later, I told my friend, and she said, "Juliette, that sounds like the smell of dead bodies." Anyway, and it was covered up with cleaning chemicals. You know what I mean? It was that smell, but it was that smell, but covered up with cleaning chemicals. And I've only ever smelled that disgusting smell twice in my life. And the one time was when Clinton walked past me into that room, and the other time was, Bill Clinton, Bill Richardson, all the Bills. Bill Gates. Why are all Epstein's friends called Bill? And why is Epstein's face on the old dollar bill? Jackson or something, isn't it, right? Anyway, it's just, well, that was a very disgusting smell. And I smelt it. It's like strong and clear. But anyway, so Bill Clinton witnessed the modeling casting and then they told me to go through and see Epstein, with my book. So I went through with my modeling book and he paged through it and he said, "Right, I think you'll be great for Victoria's Secret." And then basically what happened is after they looked at my book and stuff, they left because they were only here for like 2 days. And then his office started phoning me, this woman, Leslie Groff, who was like Epstein's secretary. And, I said, "I don't have money. I can't buy myself a ticket, I didn't have a visa. They arranged me a visa quick. Immediately, I had a visa. They got me a letter of invitation. They got me a visa immediately. Because, for a South African to travel to America, you got to have a visa and all that. And then they told me that I didn't need money because they would be paying for everything and they would be deducting it from my income when I arrived there, like from my modeling income.
Yeah.
Okay, I need a break. I can't breathe, sorry.
All right, yeah.
Thanks, Joey. I love you. Oh, sorry.
So you mentioned earlier that smell, and it got me thinking because like sulfur or rotten egg smell, it's like something that comes up in a lot of stories about demonic encounters, alien abductions, even paranormal experiences. So people describe it as foul, burning smell that shows up when something unnatural is in the room. It's like the air changes. And when I hear you say that, it makes me think maybe something deeper or something spiritual or interdimensional was present. Because I've heard survivors say that when these kinds of people walk into the room, it's like something cold and dark enters with them. And the sulfur is a signature.
Maybe that's it. It was a strong, weird smell.
I smelled that at a casino one time with this one guy who was at the roulette table, and he smelled like...
Yeah, what's your game? I love roulette, the game of chance.
Oh, that's my favorite game, roulette.
Oh, I love roulette.
If I'm hammered, I never lose. I've never lost roulette when I'm hammered. I have to be really hammered. I see the numbers, but I gotta be really hammered. I gotta be out of it.
Well, let me tell you, once I went to the casino and I turned like $10 into $10,000.
What? How? From roulette?
Within like an hour. I got the right number. First of all, I worked it up on the sides, then I, on the black and red. Then I got the right number. I think it was 36. Then I put like a lot on the number, and then I got the number again, and then I was out of there. But the casinos are evil places. I went back,
but if I'm hammered, if I'm really hammered, it's hard for me to lose at the casino when I'm hammered, and this is true, because I go there even for slots. They call me I'm a slot slut. I go to
Slots
random
machine.
slots and I just play it 1 or 2 times, and then if I'm not feeling it, I go to a different one. But I always do that. I love going to Vegas. It's my thing. I go to Vegas a lot, and
I've
then
never been to Vegas. I gotta go. Well, I
Vegas
mean,
is the
I haven't
best.
been gambling in years because I'm a mum now. I miss gambling, but I never went a lot. You know, I just went a couple of times
No,
over the years.
gambling's bad. It's bad if you do it a lot. If you do it sometimes for
Yeah.
for fun, it's
Well, how
it's
about
fun.
this XRP? You want to talk about
XRP. I'm
gambling?
done with crypto for a while now.
I bought XRP at 30 cents. And it's like I bought a
Oh,
house with my money from XRP. I started sharing that on X and people thought my account had been hacked. I'm like, no, my account wasn't hacked. I'm giving you guys financial advice here. XRP is the way forward.
yeah, XRP. When people, yeah, because they probably thought you
Love
were being paid to
XRP.
promote it.
Bitcoin's like Bitcoin. I like XRP.
I'm done with crypto for a while now. I was in.
Yeah.
I used to make crypto videos. I used to do a lot with crypto for years, but I'm done with crypto for now.
No, it's a very difficult thing to be in, especially when people put too much money in. The trick with crypto is never put in more than you're prepared to lose. You
Now
know?
the best tip now that I learned is always take profit. You know what I'm saying? You should always take profit.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I did. It was
Yeah.
so hard, but I skimmed off my profit and I bought a house.
Yeah, you have to. That's
High
the
five. I did it,
you
Joey.
have to.
Like, yeah, I did it. Well, I lost a lot of money there before. Because, you know, when I got the first Epstein settlement, I started doing a bit of crypto because I'm traumatized, you know. Don't blame
Yeah.
me. Don't shoot the mess. Well, also, like, I just thought it was such a cool sort of thing. It was really going up at the time, and I lost a fortune there. But I've won it all back.
That's good.
I'm up against a casino. Yay! And JP Morgan had to pay me out, so I'm up against the banks too.
JP Morgan.
No, fuck those bastards.
They
Blue
sunk the
butterfly.
Titanic. You're-
I know. Yes, they did. Exactly. Because there were other leading bank people that were on the Titanic. It was them that did that. I made a video about that actually. I'm gonna share it with you.
Did you?
Years ago when I was an amateur, which I'm still an amateur, but you know, I was trying to explain things and you know, it's just so hard to explain all of this is the truth. And thank you for helping
No problem.
explain
There's a
things
lot of
because
gold. You know what I'm saying?
you're a genius.
Oh, thank you. You're awesome. I'm saying like I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I'm so happy we started talking on Twitter.
I know, it's so cool. But now it's called X.
On X.
Twitter became X. But
Yeah.
do you know with Twitter and the Bluebird, it's like, and Tesla, it's like Elon Musk stole Tesla's work. That's another thing we need to discuss. Because why is Elon Musk's company called Tesla? And also they say that Nikola Tesla fell in love with a dove. Bull fucking shit is what I'll say. They stole his work. They murdered the man. They probably drugged him or something. And then they've stolen all his work. And now Elon Musk calls his company Tesla and had Twitter with the Bluebird. I find it a big red flag.
They say that when Tesla died, he left behind some boxes that had all his stuff in there, and the U.S. government seized them. And Donald Trump's uncle, John Trump, was a government scientist at the time. So a lot of people believe he found technology or ideas in those boxes. Then years later, these strange old books resurfaced, called like the Last President and Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. They were written in the 1800s about a boy named Baron. It was about time travel and even a man named Don. I think these people have been trying to control time, energy, and even consciousness for a long time.
I don't know, Joey. Are we living in an AI world? Like some people say we're stuck in a computer chip.
Have you heard of
Brings
the
me to wonder.
well,
like the Sims, the simulation.
I think it was I think the information for humans was reset multiple times because if you think about it, like you know the Tartaria theory?
I don't, but I'm going to
There's
write it
Tartaria.
down. I need to
There's
do research. I've heard of
Tartaria.
it, but I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, Tartaria was a lost civilization that had advanced technology, free energy, and architecture that we can't even replicate today. The idea is our history's been completely rewritten. So the world was reset. They say like maybe through a cataclysm or a planned event. And what we call the 1800s was actually the cleanup. So that's why you see these massive, impossible buildings in old photos right next to horse and buggy peasants. Then came the World Fairs, where they say they built entire cities in under 2 years just to tear them down after. I mean, but it looks like more like they were showcasing what they found from the old world.
The Great Reset was the 1600s, because let me start from the very beginning. A very good place to start. The
Where
Garden
are
of
we
Eden.
going into? What did we do? Where were we at? I don't even know.
Well, we're starting from the very beginning. Yeah, Jesus, the Son of God.
Wait, hold on. But where were we?
His mother was Virgin Mary.
No. Wait, where? But do we? Wait a minute.
Sorry, Joey.
We didn't do the Epstein thing. We didn't even.
Okay.
Well, let's finish it. We were
Yeah,
almost done.
I'm very full on spiritual way, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Where were you? Where were we with
can we
that?
just do this Garden of Eden thing quickly? It won't take me long, I promise you.
Go
Will you
ahead.
give me 5 minutes?
Go ahead.
5
Go ahead.
minutes, good friends. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got the Garden of Eden. You've got Adam and Eve. You've got the snake. So when Eve took the apple from the snake, did she actually breed with the snake? Also, what's up with this apple? The Garden of Eden, Isaac Newton, the apple fell on his head in 1666. The first Apple computer was sold for $666.66. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on with this apple. You know, also Steve Jobs, who owned Apple, his daughter is called Eve. Anyway, let's go back to the Garden of Eden. So, you know, then also apparently Adam's first wife was Lilith, who transformed and she had blue butterfly wings, much like the Epstein victims used the blue butterfly wings, you know, as a symbol. Sorry, it's complicated, okay? So anyway, so Eve mated with the snake, and that's when transhumanism started. And it's almost like extraterrestrial. I don't know if it's like from inner Earth or from outer Earth. I don't know if space even exists, to be honest. I mean, we've been lied to so much. Like, did Neil Armstrong actually land on the moon? I doubt it. Anyway.
So you're talking about, okay, so the Garden of Eden serpent seed theory you're talking about.
Yes.
So the mainstream version is Eve is tempted by the serpents.
Here we go.
Right?
This is the bloodlines. It's the bloodlines. Because now you've got RH negative, okay? Because RH negative and RH positive are very different species on Earth. Basically, my family are all RH positive, and I'm suddenly an RH negative. And my child's an RH negative because his child's RH negative. But basically, if a woman who's RH negative has a child with an RH positive man, she has to be injected with Rogam. It's like the body rejects the fetus because
Rogaine?
What happens? The body rejects the fetus. The Rogam. Yeah, it's Rogam. It's people can look it up online. It's RHOGAM. It's if a woman who's RH negative, like for instance, if I fall pregnant with a man who's RH positive, I'm going to have to give him Rogam, which I obviously wouldn't want. But anyway, I've never had to do that, thank God, because it's actually dangerous for a woman who's RH negative to fall pregnant with an RH positive man. So basically, we've got different species on Earth, but they don't tell us about it. Like also, if someone who's RH negative travels to Thailand, they could be in serious danger. Because in Thailand, there's no RH negative blood. It's a very specific blood that's basically originated from Basque, and obviously also from wherever Cain and Abel came from. But you see, what happened is when the serpent seed was born, God intervened. I don't like the idea of God. I think God is Satan, actually. I don't believe it's God. But there's some beautiful energy that controls Earth, like Gaia, Mother Earth. Her son is the sun, her water is the daughter, controlled by the moon. Her father is the sky who protects us all. You know, there's no male God here. This is female and male. We live in a world of balance. It's fucking bullshit that women have been treated like such shit for so long. You know. Like women were only able to vote in 1920. They were only allowed to own property in 1920. What's up with that? Anyway, getting back to the story of the Garden of Eden and all of that. God intervened, apparently, and then, you know, you've got Jesus born from the Virgin Mary, born without a father. So it was obviously, again, the bloodlines. And when I realized this was when I was doing my book and writing my research, I was studying Botticelli and all the artists, and I saw Botticelli's works, The Birth of Venus. So, you know, with Botticelli, Birth of Venus, it's like an adult being born on a shell, and her mother is the earth and her father's the sky. And I started thinking, what's going on here? You know, and then I started, I don't know why, I just started digging deeper, and I realized that it's interbreeding, you know, but between like gods and humans. There's like a lot more going on Earth. I mean, you look into the RH negative, you'll realize that a lot of people who are RH negative are in positions of power. For instance, like 44 out of the 45 past American presidents are all Rh negative. It's the blue blood, in fact. Like the royalty are all apparently Rh negative. Most of them are O negative, but you also get B negative, AB negative. Like
That's
I'm
why they were
also
collecting the DNA. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I believe that they were collecting the DNA and they were seeing who could be the most person they could use in whatever scientific experiment that they were doing. What I mean? But it's all about the bloodline. So when they were, everything that they were doing with their rituals and stuff, they were also looking for, it wasn't just model scouting. They were really, it was the trafficking, but beyond that, they were looking for certain blood types, the DNA, because the DNA is the code. They were looking for people with the DNA that they can do whatever that they want to do with their rituals. Because if you have that bloodline, the theory is that you're more susceptible to possession. So the veil's thinner like that. Demons, or whatever you want to call them, can take over more easily. So all this, the trafficking, the abuse, the ritual stuff, it was a breeding program, a gateway operation. And only certain bloodlines let them do what they really want.
And also, what I realized eventually is that it's very much like God's seed versus demon seed, God's seed versus serpent seed, because you get different sides here. And also, a lot of the Rh negative people, O negative people, actually came from Basque, which is on the border of France and Spain. And in the whole world, like only about like 7 or 10%, even like I think it's even lower already, of people are actually O negative or Rh negative. Well, Rh negatives all, but in Basque, 35% of the people are Rh negative. And also Saint Michael was the patron saint of Basque. And, there are many images depicting him as killing the snake, killing the dragon, because he's the good bloodline. He's got the wings and he's, it's like it's angels versus demons is what it is, which also will bring us back to Da Vinci Code. Sorry to jump across, but let me just keep going on the bloodlines for a while. Because, with the bloodlines, apparently what happened is they started murdering people of the bloodline, and then people fled to Scotland. Like Jesus apparently had children, and that's the Holy Grail, is actually Jesus's descendants. Because Jesus had children in secret. And Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute, she was a very special person, and Jesus protected her. So there were, different people here fighting. It's like good versus evil. It's like God and devil, good and evil. And when you look into the bloodlines, you also realize that a lot of the good people were murdered. They called them witches, They burnt all the witches in 1430 in England, Joan of Arc, also from France, also an O negative. And then after that, they burnt all the books in 1497, the Bonfire of the Vanities. If you look it up online, you'll just find a movie that comes up, but you need to dig deeper. And Bonfire of the Vanities was a real event when they burnt things that they felt were unfit for people, which was basically all of our history, like books on magic and books on culture. Even Botticelli burnt a lot of his artworks then. Because, also that's another thing is after this, what happened is there was the Great Reset. They burnt all the people, and then they even used to burn cats. Anyone who owned a cat, you just get burned, and the cat got burnt. I mean, it's horrible. I don't even want to think about it, but we got to be strong. Okay, so they burnt the people, they burnt the books, and then what happened is in the 1600s was the Great Reset. They call it the Renaissance, but it was actually the Great Reset. And that's when a family called the Medici family took over. Medici is like medical. They were like doctors. They were like dodgy, obviously. And all the people like Leonardo, Da Vinci, Raphael, Botticelli, and Michelangelo, a lot of these people were working for them. So I'm not sure about Botticelli. But all the Ninja Turtle names, which is also like reptilian, like I saw Epstein shapeshift, which also goes back to the bloodlines because, St. Michael slays the snake. Sorry, but the Ninja Turtles. So all these artists were actually working for the Medici family, and they were depicting, whatever they wanted at the time. And also, if you anagram Leonardo da Vinci, you get O Draconian Devil. You can do an anagram of the word. And we must find a clip and put a picture up to show people here, Joey. Also, if you anagram the Mona Lisa, you get O Lame Saint. So it's basically dragons against saints. There's been, and also there's the draconians. I started looking because after I saw Epstein shapeshift, I had to do research. Obviously, I had to try and explain it to myself.
Yeah, well, that brings me to my theory. So, like, when you saw
Yeah.
shapeshift, yeah. So your bloodline. What do you think your bloodline is?
I've got a weird bloodline. Obviously, because my family had to flee here from Ireland, and like Nelson Mandela was sent to Robben Island. My granny's aunt was sent to Robben Island and never seen again. A lot more people were like kept in captivity and had horrible things happening. But a lot of history's been hidden from us, and people have been too frightened to even talk about it, I suppose. But sorry, where were we now?
Oh, well, we were before
Sorry.
this. We were still on Epstein. You said you met all those people.
Well, you see, I saw him turn into that thing, and that's also what led me down the whole bloodline thing, because also it's very much like goes
So
back
that
to the
was at
garden.
Zorro Ranch. So let's finish.
No, that was on the island where I saw him shift. Yeah, let's
Okay,
finish
so-
off with Zorro Ranch. Should we talk about the properties and the flight logs?
We were talking about the Epstein story. You never finished it. You had met that girl, and then you met all those people, Kevin Spacey with the camera, and then after that, you
Yeah.
went to
Then the ops phoned me.
the modeling thing, and then let's talk about and then how you ended up on the island.
So basically, they flew me to New York, and there was a car waiting at the airport. A man had my name on a board. It really felt like I was like, oh my God, even my mum even spoke to Epstein before I was taken there. She wanted to make sure I'd be safe. And Epstein was like a mastermind criminal. He was very clever, and he told my mum that he's going to get me in modeling, but he also wants to perhaps pay for me to study anything I want anywhere in the world. You know what I mean? Because my mum was very interested in me getting a good education. So he tricked my mum too. Because, he was a mastermind criminal. So anyway, I landed there, and then after 5 minutes, they dropped me off at the apartment, 301 East 66th Street. And after 5 minutes, like being in the apartment, the phone rang, and it was Sarah Killen. And she said, pack a smaller bag, we're going to the Caribbean. So I was obviously assuming it was for a modeling shoot or something. I didn't have a phone there. My phone couldn't roam. It was like long ago, So, and I didn't have money, the car came back, and then I got in the car, and then they drove me to the airport, Teterboro Airport in New York, and then near New York, and then I got on the airplane, and Sarah Killen and Andrea Metrovich were both sitting on the airplane on one side, and Epstein was on the other side, and then he like patted the chair next to him, like, don't like come sit here, and then I went and sat there, and then when the airplane took off. So my dog's barking. They feel my anxiety. When the airplane took off, he just started touching me between my legs, and that's when I really fucking freaked out. I was like, oh my God, these people could kill me. I just realized, like, oh my God, I've been lied to. Like, I thought my family never going to see me again. I went into a state of shock. It broke me partially. I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do anymore. It was fucking terrifying.
And that's the danger. That moment on the plane, that's when it became real. That's the line. That's the point where your life is at risk, because it's not just some rich guy anymore. It's a machine. It's a system. And once you're inside it, speaking out becomes a threat to the whole operation.
Yeah, and the other girls that sat there and laughed. Sorry, my dog's here to protect me. But the other scary thing is that they didn't put my name on that flight log. So like if I'd gone missing, no one would have known. Like my family would have thought I'd gone missing in New York. They wouldn't have
Which
realized
flight log?
That was when they took me from New York to the Caribbean. Because I've checked the flight log thoroughly, because when the lawyers were representing me, I was helping to go over the timeline of everything, because that's what lawyers do. They provide evidence and times. So I looked through the flight logs, and then I saw that my name wasn't even put on that flight. So if I'd gone missing, no one wouldn't have known. So basically, it brings into question every flight log, because it shows that people have been taken on those flights that could have vanished. In fact,
Yeah, so
pretty
the flight logs
disgusting.
are not like they were not real. Like they could have easily not put someone's name on it, and they could have literally done whatever they want. They could have killed the person, and no one would know.
Easily, and no bags were checked. They could have transported anything they wanted on those planes. Nothing was checked. Like the car just dropped me off at the plane. You hop into the plane from the car, and that's that. Then you land wherever you land, and then their car's waiting, and they take all the stuff, and there's no one ever checking anything. You got like free. They had like a free pass, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, but it's about the flight logs. Like, not everybody was on the flight log. They could not. They didn't write everyone's names down. That's how they got away with a lot of stuff.
No, exactly.
So then you were taken to the island.
So when we arrived there, like they would show me to stay. Like I was put to stay in a chalet there, and then they used to like call me to his room. You know, and then he'd like obviously sexually abuse me, like you know, and then you know, I was very confused. It was very frightening, all of it. And then the next day, another girl was brought in, and while we were watching a movie, she started like giving him a blowjob in front of me while we were watching a movie, and I got a big fright and I ran away. And then after that, more and more girls just kept coming and going. They just kept coming and going. And then Ghislaine Maxwell arrived there too, you know. So they were all there. It was just like very, very weird. And I was also told that Ghislaine Maxwell was Epstein's girlfriend. So that was like very weird. It made it even worse because it was like, okay, we're being abused and sexually molested by this man, but now his girlfriend's here too. You know, it was just like, oh, it was actually such a mind fuck, to be honest.
Yeah,
Sorry, I need a sip of my champagne. Sorry. But, you know, it's just like, it was, yeah. And then, you know, we were there for about 5 days. And then, sorry, I get so anxious when I talk about this. You talk, Joey, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. On the island for
actually-
about 5 days. You've done so many interviews on this, and I've seen it so many times that
Thanks, Joey. Yeah,
like,
and that's why
I
we
know
don't
the
wanna be
story,
repeating
but
it,
it's
yeah.
like I'm
And
more
you're right. I've had to say it. I mean, it actually hurts me every time I say it. And
Yeah,
saying it
I mean,
again,
I'm more interested
yeah,
into
thanks,
the
Joey. Yeah,
paranormal
so
side
then
of things.
eventually I took me to Zorro Ranch, you know.
Zorro
So
Ranch.
when I was on the island, I saw him shapeshift. Thank you, Joey. You're so kind. Thank you. Because it's so painful for me talking about it all. And obviously, I'm willing to answer any questions. But
Yeah, so
obviously, it's just
I wanted to get to the
painful.
Zorro Ranch, but I just
So,
wanted to quickly.
you know, I
I just
saw
wanted.
shapeshift there on the island, you know. And like
That's
I
what
tried
we
to
gotta talk about.
say,
The shape shifting.
it wasn't like he turned like the Incredible Hulk. He didn't turn in front of me. Like basically, I was in this bedroom with him, and then like when he used to have an orgasm, he used to make like this weird screeching sound, it sounded like a young child shout. It was weird. It was like can't even redo the noise. And he used to also ask girls to like turn his nipples around and like pinch them. You know, sorry, I've never talked about that either. Sorry, it's all pretty gross. Um, Anyway, you know, the one day I saw him like turn into something in the bedroom, but like he had the covers up to him on here, and then his head. I looked away. It wasn't like he turned like the Incredible Hulk. What happened is, I was looking at him, and then I looked away, and then when I looked at him again, suddenly he was like this other sort of creature, and his head went bigger, and he had these massive black eyes, and like a big mouth, and like with a tongue, and I was just like. I looked and it was almost like a hologram. It wasn't like solid, you know, it was like hologram. But I saw it there very, very obviously. Because, you know, also whenever he used to take me into this bedroom, it was always dark and ice cold. The bedroom was very cold, like with air conditioning and
How
very
long
dark.
did you see him shapeshift for? How many, like, how long was that duration?
Okay, like this. Okay, so I'm gonna act like I did, like what happened. Okay, so I looked there, then I looked. Okay, and then I just sat and I looked. You know, I looked for like about that long, and then I decided like, oh my god, I'm gonna look away. And then when I looked back at him, it was him again. So it was like I saw it for like a good like 10 seconds at least. You know what I mean? I was like, I didn't want to say anything because I was like, oh my god. Like in your mind, when you see something like that, it's like, what the fuck's going on?
And you remember everything in great detail, like before that moment and after that moment. So it's not like if they did secretly give you
I
drugs.
wasn't on drugs. No,
Yeah,
there were
there's
no
no way
drugs
because like
or
before
alcohol.
that,
Nothing
nothing
was nothing
weird
like that.
happened, and after that.
No, I saw him turn in front of my eyes. And the other weird thing is that after that, I didn't actually look at him and think, why did he turn in front of my eyes? It almost created like a bit of a brain fog. It's like something that very vividly happened where I was like, what the fuck? But, you know, I just, Also like so long ago, it was like, times were very different then. It wasn't a very easy thing to talk about. I mean, it's still not an easy thing to talk about, but I know what I saw. I swear on everyone I love's lives that I saw that. I saw him turn into this thing and it was weird. It happened. And there are other people who've had similar experiences like Kathy O'Brien and Jeanette Archer. Also if you look online, the other stories like with, they say Justin Bieber turned into a lizard, Adele turned into a lizard. There's stories also like where Prince Andrew says he doesn't sweat. Hillary Clinton doesn't sweat. Well, why don't they sweat? Because they're lizards, is what they are. But it's very hard to actually explain it. But I saw it. I saw it.
No, I believe it. Many people have seen that. It's real. It's not fake. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like people have to understand the moments before and after. You weren't like nothing else weird happened to you that you saw visually. So you weren't in a like drug induced
I was
state.
I was more lucid then than I ever was because, like, at that age, I used to like going out and having a drink or smoking a joint, and I wasn't allowed any of that on the island. So I was more conscious and lucid than ever, in fact.
It happened for real. Like you saw that for sure. It was
Yeah.
real.
And I don't know why, but I fucking saw it. And then also, like, we were talking about New Mexico. So, that was the weird thing because, there were a few red flags, obviously. But when I was taken to this place, obviously, firstly, the sexual abuse, taken to the bedroom, he used to force orgasms out of girls, well, out of me. I don't know if he did that to other girls, but, he was like, some people say he was doing some sort of like sex magic, which is very likely. Also, if they were actually taking eggs, which, is what we've sort of come to realize, apparently like it primes an egg for girls to have orgasms. It's better for the eggs, and also that would explain why there was no alcohol or anything like that allowed. If he was taking eggs, he would have wanted the eggs in prime condition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But but at the ranch what happened is Michael Bay was there, and he denies being there, but I met him there, and I also saw him in Hollywood because I was taken to Hollywood after all of this. But I don't know if it was connected to Epstein. It might have been. But that's a whole nother chapter. I don't want to jump around too much here. But yeah, I met Michael Bay there, and I met scientists, at the island and New Mexico. And then the one night while Epstein was making everyone watch the movie The Rock, which Michael Bay had made, because he was like bragging that Michael Bay was there, and we met him in the kitchen and stuff. Then they were watching the movie, and then I went outside to have a cigarette. And then what happened is I saw these three lights like in a triangle formation, like what 1, 2, 3, but that was like big. It was like the size of like two baseball fields or a baseball in the sky, and they started spinning. And it was like one baseball field. I don't know how far away it was, but it just started spinning, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I was like looking. I was thinking, is there like a light show? The lights coming from the land, but they most certainly weren't. Also at Epstein's ranch, you can see it looks like very much like a landing pad there, also for like an alien ship. But I
Well,
saw the lights.
Zorro Ranch is located it's in New Mexico and it's near Los Alamos and it's close to the deep underground military bases and UFO hotspots. So
Yeah.
this
Sorry,
is
Jimmy.
all these are all facts. So what you saw, the triangular formation, a lot of people have seen the triangular, formation.
And it's also, Jerry, between Roswell and Dulce Base. Epstein's Zorro Ranch is apparently directly in between Dulce and Roswell Base. And I mean, as we know, there's a lot of underground military bases at these places. There's also like Area 51. I mean, there are many people who've had alien encounters. There's even a school in Zimbabwe where 62 children witnessed an alien craft and an alien coming out. Like, people can look it up online.
Yeah, I
The
know. I'm very
Zimbabwe
familiar with that case. I know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm the first one who's seen something weird like this. It's happened before. But then what happened is I got locked out of the house. I couldn't get back in. And then like it was just like a weird time. I was like stuck out there for like 15 minutes, and that's also the time when I have that sort of flashback where I wake up paralyzed in a lab.
So you went to the ranch. They flew you to the ranch. Before that, though, they flew you to.
They took me to all the properties. I was
How many
taken
properties
to-
were there?
Well, the ones that I saw was New Mexico, New York, the Caribbean, Palm Beach, and Paris. And also, do you know what's interesting? I thought New York, New Mexico, once when we were flying in his plane, we also stopped off at Newfoundland. Why all these names with the new in front of it? You know what I mean? And the plane nearly got frozen there. And I don't know why we were refueling, because we were traveling from Paris to New York. And usually from
But how
Paris
many
to New York,
people were with you?
it
Like how many
was
other?
always him and his staff and other victims, you know? He always had like a sort of group around, and it was just very, very weird being around those people. Like even also when we used to eat food, like he'd never have a plate served to him. There'd always be like a group platter, and like, or he'd eat off other people's plates. I think he was like scared of being poisoned or something. And also like the girls weren't allowed to ask for food for themselves. Like like the one girl asked the staff to make her a sandwich the one day, and the staff was like really rude to her. Like we weren't allowed to like make ourselves a sandwich, or it wasn't like a comfortable, like, we were like very much just like told to stay in our rooms and come out when we were called. And we were called for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they had obviously very nice food provided on platters at those times. But if you wanted like a sandwich in between, you know, yeah. Yeah, it was just very, very, very weird. And also another thing I realized was that even though there were other girls staying in the chalets on the island, it wasn't like, like girls on camp or whatever would go and like hang out with each other. We'd never go into each other's rooms. We were all like so scared, you know, of everything. It's not like we were all sitting there laughing, having a fun time. You know what I mean? Like we'd see each other in the days, the girls and I, and then we'd like go for a ride on the quad bike or sit and have lunch, but we weren't like sitting and laughing and chilling or anything like that. It was like it was a very, very nerve-wracking, horrible place to be.
It's like a prison,
You know,
prison
yeah.
slavery type thing, really.
It
Like
was
you're
almost like a
trapped.
cult. I realized it's almost like had like a bit of a cult going on, and then girls were also sort of developing like Stockholm syndrome, because Epstein was like a very mastermind criminal. He was very clever and good at sort of knocking people and making them feel bad about themselves, like because he knew I smoked like marijuana. He called it pot at the time. He made it seem like I was like a junkie and I was worthless. He told me I was getting wrinkles already when I was 20 years old. He was
The
just
hell?
like, he
Wait,
used to like,
who did that?
Epstein.
Oh,
He used to say like, oh, if I want to be a model, I've got to stop smoking. I'm getting wrinkles. Like he'd always like try and like knock people, and like if like he'd like poke people in the stomach and say, oh, you're so fat. Or he was like, it was like a very like messed up situation being around people like that. A lot of people ask why I went back. It's like I've said many times, like the man fucking threatened me. Like before, firstly, I mean, I saw him shapeshift into this creature. Then before I was sent home, he said that he had my family's name on a list. He worked for the CIA, and he said that a girl who accused him of rape, he planted drugs in her apartment and had her sent to prison. So, I was obviously completely terrified. He just, it almost seemed like he sort of ran the world. So I think a lot of girls who were like from poor families, from broken homes, they really believed that this man was going to sort of help them and give them like support and shelter, really, is the truth. I think he used to like, it's like dangling a carrot. He used to promise all sorts of things for people and then take advantage of them. And I don't blame any of the girls who recruited other girls. He offered me $2,000 for any girl I recruited, or $4,000 to work there and stay there. But I didn't do that because I missed my family. I was from Africa. But
so
I realized
let's go back to the Zorro Ranch. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Zorro Ranch. Like when you first got there, how did you feel? Was there anything like, did your vibration change? Was your emotional sensation? Were you more aware? Were you less aware? Was there like static in the air? Like,
it's a good question.
what did you
I felt
feel like?
weird.
Let's talk about when you first arrived there.
I thought I was only there for like a few days, and what I realized is I think I was there for about 10 days, which is scary because usually they move around with them every 5 days. But what happened is from the airport, they picked me up and Epstein was in the car, and then I actually said to Epstein while we were driving, because like by that point I'd become a bit like older and a bit more cheeky, and a bit more like confident, like, because before I was like so broken, and like over the time I sort of started to like realize if I'm just gonna like, try to sort these people out really as I could. I also put on weight and became like, I just started standing up for myself a little more, really. So while we were driving, I said to Epstein, I said, wow, this is near Roswell. Have you ever seen an alien? And he was angry. He was in front of the car, and there were a whole lot of people in the car. And he said, yes, Juliette, the little green men running around all over the place. He was like all sarcastic, and like I was like, but I was at the time I was sort of joking because I didn't really understand aliens, or I didn't, I was young and naive. I just knew that we were in New Mexico and we were close to Roswell, so I was sort of questioning it. But anyway, yeah, when we got there, it was kind of weird, yeah. And then he had the girl, Nadia Marchenko, there staying with him, and there were a few other girls around. But it was just, yeah, it was very weird. He also used to have a girl following me around. Like, I was only allowed 3 cigarettes a day there. Like this girl who was like a trainer, apparently. Her name was Magali Belachon. Apparently, she's like, some people have told me she might be related to like the French prime minister or something like that. Well, I don't know. I don't know more. But anyway, she used to follow me around. And then I was only allowed to have a cigarette at breakfast, a cigarette at lunch, and a cigarette at dinner. So I was, yeah, being followed around by them, and yeah, it was just very weird, And then
how long was this after the island? Like,
that was like 18 months after, because they kept bringing me back and forth basically. Because what happened the one time is when he took me to New York, it was weird. Like one of his assistants was going out. And then I said, please, can I go out? Because I'd never, ever been out in New York in my life. And I was a young girl, and he let me go out with her. So we went out, and we went to a club, and it was like, I was basically like probably the only white girl there, And anyway, we were talking to these guys. I think they were like, maybe it's Puff Diddy associations. I don't know. But this girl was talking to them, and then they like, my drink got spiked, and I was like really, really sick. So his assistant just like put me in a taxi to get back to Epstein's house. She didn't come with me, and I didn't have a key to get back in. And then, because the next day he wanted to fly me with scientists, and I was supposed to serve drinks or something. But anyway, when I got back to his house, I was knocking on the door, and I ended up waking him up, and he was furious. And then I went straight to the kitchen, and I like found a muffin and water, and I just ate it, and I threw up. Sorry to be gross, but I'd been spiked, so had that a few times actually over the years. Anyway, he said I was irresponsible and a danger to him, and he flew me back very quickly then. But then he kept phoning me, and then I didn't see him for like, it's quite weird, the timeline. I didn't see him for a while after that, but he still kept in contact with me. And then he took me to New Mexico. It was like back and forth. It was like he had like some sort of weird control over me, but not in the way where I was like getting paid money or anything. Because like they've gone through all the bank statements, they can see.
And you went to Zorro Ranch one time for 10 days. You feel like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this. So when you went there,
2004.
July 2004, you went to
Yeah.
Zorro Ranch for about 10 days, and you were there, and you were inside, you said, with people, and then you stepped outside, and that's where you saw the UFO.
Yeah, when I saw the UFO. And then I have the flashback memory waking up in a lab. Paralyzed.
How long after was it? So did you see the UFO and then the lab happened?
It was like, I can't even put a time on that. That's the weird thing with that UFO thing. It was definitely around that time, but I don't know if it was that night or the next day or the day after. You know what I mean? It's very weird.
Well, a lot of times when people see UFOs and stuff, there's a lot of like missing time, and they don't really know the exact timing of things. This is true.
It's not like I woke up and I had a scrambled egg and got abducted and I landed and had some coffee. You know what I mean?
So when you saw the thing, you saw 3 lights, you said? You saw 3 lights? So you were outside. I want you to paint the visual for me. Like you were outside of the ranch house, what was it? You're outside.
Yeah, outside his
You're having a cig.
Ranch.
You're having a cigarette.
Yeah.
And people are inside, and it was nighttime.
Yeah.
And then, how did you feel? Was there like static in the air or anything? Did you feel anything there? And what made you look up?
You're just weird. It felt very weird. Everything got weird. I felt very scared. I felt very scared and everything. Yes, it felt like everything went still. I felt like time went still, actually.
Outside, time went still. You looked up. You look it up, and then you saw.
Yeah, it's fun. It started spinning and then it vanished. It was there. I watched it for about like, it was there for about like 20 seconds. You know what I mean?
How?
But
What was the
I saw
size
the
of it?
triangle and it started spinning. Well, it was like probably the size of like a baseball field, but it was in the distance. It was probably like about like 200 meters away from me. Because, sorry, I speak in meters, not yards.
I don't
It
know.
was, yeah, about 200 meters away. And the thing was very, very big. And yeah, and I was just like, it was very, very overwhelming. And also, another thing that happened when I was in New Mexico is before I was sent home from there, Epstein gave me a pelvic exam, like on a table, just before I was sent home. He like laid me on a table and like gave me, and that's the other weird thing is he didn't actually technically sexually abuse me as usual for that time. I think I'd like maybe got a bit old or something, because he liked younger girls. But he did sort of give me a pelvic exam and touch me around myself, and like it was just very weird.
Before you
I
went
don't
there,
know. Before I was sent home again. And that's the last time he ever took me there.
the UFOs, you saw them spinning. They dipped, and then you were there. You were panicked, and you tried to get back inside the house.
Yeah. And then what happened is I went around the house to find where they were watching the movie, and I started knocking on the glass door there, and then finally one of them heard me and came and let me in. But it was very weird how I got locked out. Because, I closed the door. It shouldn't have locked. It was open from the inside. It shouldn't have locked me out. You know what I mean? But
And,
for some
yeah.
reason, I got locked out.
And then after,
Yeah.
when was the lab? When was the?
Well,
You woke up
well,
one
that
day and
happened
you
like
were in the
it was
underground
around that
labs.
sort of time. It was around that time. I can't place an exact time on it because also I've never like had anesthetic, but a friend of mine said that if you're given anesthetic or something, you can have flashbacks, and I can't place a time on that.
Yeah,
But it
I mean, it
happened.
could have happened right after the UFO incident, and then
I
you
think you know
just
what?
had missing
I think it
time,
happened during that. Yeah, I think it happened during that time. In fact,
and then you had
and
flashback
also
to it.
another thing is that when I got back from there, I wasn't okay. Like, I was in a total fucking mess. Sorry to swear. Like, I couldn't leave my house for a year. I had to be put on 3 tranquilizers a day, and I don't do pills. I don't agree with pills, but I had to be put on them because I felt like I was dying every day. Like, I was hospitalized 10 times with panic attacks. There was nothing wrong with me. I've never been to hospital. I've never broken a bone. I've never had a stitch, apart from, when I gave birth, sorry. But anyway, I've never ever needed any hospital thing. But I had to go to the hospital. I was taken there 10 times, with serious debilitating panic attacks where I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was going to fucking die every day. And this went on until I was 28. For years. I also developed severe bulimia, being around a place where you're not allowed to just go freely eat. I'd go in the kitchen in the night and get biscuits because I was so anxious. And, we weren't allowed to get fat and everything. So it was just like a horrible, horrible time in my life. And, after that, I really wasn't okay. I used to have I had terrible, terrible panic attacks, and I don't even like talking about them. Like, that was when I was 23. Right now, I'm 43. And I can, drink all day and I'm fine. I don't have panic attacks like that. You know what I mean? Like, as far as, looking after one's health. Like, I was in a serious mess after I
Well,
got
I
back
think
from
they
that.
took you under the laboratory. I think they took you there. Something to do with the UFOs. I think they're interdimensional stuff. I know people think it's like a ship, but for me, I think it's like interdimensional. You were taken in the laboratories. That part, if you could explain that more, because I think that they were taking your DNA, doing experiments. They took your eggs
Yes.
for sure. It just ties everything together with all the rituals that they were doing.
And the butterfly trust. Well, in the lab, I only have I was only aware in there for about 15 seconds. Like, basically, I was strapped, I was lying on a table. I don't know if I was strapped because I could only see around, but I was naked, and there were 6 people in hazmat suits, but I don't know if they were people because they were very tall. There were 6 beings in hazmat suits around me, 3 down the one side, 3 down the other side, and then there was a female doctor by my head, And she was like a very good looking woman, with like perfect skin, not like beautiful, but very good looking. And she had dark hair, and her hair was tied up. And she came near my head and she said, "Don't worry, everything's okay." Because my eyes opened and I couldn't move, I couldn't speak, I was like paralyzed. So it was like very, very. I got a terrible shock, of course. And there was a big like mirror on top of me, like like it was like a door, like the size of a door. But that mirror was like about like 2 meters on top of me. Like 6 foot, talking in yards and things. It was like that high above me. There was like this mirror, and then I didn't see any apparatus or anything, but I did see these people around me. And then she said, "Don't worry, everything's okay." And then I was out again. She came like close to my head, and then I was out. So, I don't know more about all of that.
I mean, it's
It-
crazy that they never searched it, really, the Zorro Ranch. I don't believe they actually investigated it.
they've never investigated anything. I mean, look at the island. The island's been sold off to become a holiday resort. I mean, who on earth wants to go on holiday to an island where people have been murdered, for God's sakes?
It's crazy because it's
There's
documented that
underground stuff. There's underground.
it's documented this guy was into transhumanism, DNA cloning, all this kind of stuff. So it's like, why wouldn't they investigate all his properties thoroughly? I mean,
Well, that's a big cover up. I mean, there's $1 billion worth of human trafficking between Epstein and JP Morgan's accounts. Like, come on. Like, what more could there be to cover up than something like that? Like, if no one else thinks that's suspicious, then come on. It's a big red flag. $1 billion worth of human trafficking between Epstein and JP Morgan's accounts. And all the victims being found dead, for God's sakes. Like Carolyn Adriano, dead. Virginia Gifford, dead. Ruslana, dead. Tracy Lee, dead. I mean, Lee Patrick. It's just like person after person. It's getting a bit much, And Trump
yeah.
promises the Epstein list, and then where is it? Then he's suddenly like,
Still, I mean, it doesn't even matter. What are they going to give us? The list, the files. It's all going to be butchered. There's no point. It's
We
never
wanna
going to
see the
have the truth in there.
transaction.
The truth in there is that they're in a satanic cult. This is what I believe. All of my research has shown me the dots are connecting to that's what was going on. It was some dark stuff, and it's never going to be in the files. So whatever they release, if they ever release them, it's not going to ever have the truth in there. It's always going to be butchered. I'm like just confused at why they would even let Ghislaine Maxwell testify and stuff. Like, what do you think she's going to say? She's not a person to trust. Makes no sense to me. Other than the fact that they just want to pardon her. They're all in the satanic cult. All the signs are right there. All the artwork there too, and the statues that you saw, weren't they satanic?
Yeah, there was a lot of weird artwork there. I mean, even in the bedroom I was meant to stay in, there was like an artwork of a walrus raping a girl with ECG things on her chest. I'll share it with you to share also. But there was a lot of weird stuff there, and also you had a lot of pictures of naked girls around. Yeah, and basically they've completely lied. Like, where are the other victims? 200 girls claimed from the fund. There was the Epstein fund. Like I've said openly before, I was given $900,000 through the Epstein compensation fund. Then through the JP Morgan fund, I was given a settlement of $1.15 million, 1.15, which I'm very, very grateful for. But, I just want to know where the other victims are and why victims are being found dead. There's been a lot going on now. And also now they want me to sign a contract to sue the FBI, but they were trying to tell me that I'm not allowed to post online without a lawyer's consent. And I'm sorry, they can offer me all the money in the world. I will never do that because
Yeah.
I'm not selling. I'm not for sale.
No,
And,
this is about exposing everything and having people understand
Yeah.
what's actually happening. It's much like you can't sign something that's going to prevent you from.
That's so angry,
You know
Joey.
what I'm saying? You're sharing your experience that happened. You're a real person. This actually happened.
Yeah.
Shapeshifting happened.
Exactly. And I've
You
got
saw
enough
it.
money already. I was already a businesswoman before. Like, I've been through trauma, but I've had people help me. And even before I got any settlement money, I already owned my own nice house and everything. But now I'm even more sorted out financially. So I don't do this for money. I do this to try help. And I'm not for sale. I don't need I don't want diamonds and Ferraris. I just want a roof over my head and food. and I would just really want the world to become a better place, mainly, But also another thing I want to say is the other thing is that they're trying to offer us a mental health fund because the U.S. Virgin Islands has given a $10 million settlement for the victims, for mental health. But I don't know one victim that's actually taken them up on it. I nearly did, but then I just a lot of people warned me about it, and I thought, oh, I don't know about this anymore. Because now, what they're trying to do is they're saying, they'll pay for me to, and that's a lot of money, $10 million. It's for all the girls, okay? So, my amount of that would be about, $100,000, which is amazing, for therapy, and I'd love to take them up on it, but you have to make provision for a psychiatrist. So you see, I'm not doing that because I don't want to be put on pills and I don't want them tracking everything. Not tracking everything. They can track what they like. They can watch me online right here. But I'm not having a psychiatrist suddenly saying that, oh, I need to be put on pills. I don't need pills, as you can see. And
It's just a way to silence you.
Yeah, but Joey, now do you know what else they're saying? They're saying they'll pay for me to study anything I want anywhere in the world. They'll pay for me to do yoga classes, art classes, anything I want. But a psychiatrist has to be watching.
Nah, that's
disgusting, actually, isn't it?
That's bullshit.
Yeah. I don't call that therapy. I call that blackmail.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're trying to prevent you from speaking the truth out.
Yeah. Yeah, and trying to get me to sign a thing. So I said to them, can I speak? What about my posts about the weather? Because, I speak about tsunamis and everything. So they said, oh, my posts about the weather are fine. But, they want to monitor all my posts. I was like,
listen, it's about your blood. I think that what was really happening has to do with your DNA, your bloodline. They were doing something with the DNA. They were taking eggs. 100% is what I believe, based on everything. When you look at the bigger picture, that's what was going on. The guy was into, transhumanism. He was into cloning. He was into DNA. That's what was happening. Recently they're talking about he was also into something with gravity. So he was investing in a lot of things. He was talking to a lot of scientists. This is not a joke. This is really what was going on.
He also funded the robot Sophia, And you said, eugenics, cloning. And, if people think that cloning is not possible, they cloned a sheep in 1996. God knows what they can do by now and 30 years later. Bill Clinton actually banned the use of federal funds for human cloning. He just banned the use of federal funds. That doesn't mean all funds are banned from human cloning. And if they can do it, they will do it. Much like the movie The Island, I met Michael Bay there. The scientists, you start to realize that there's something going on underground here and they're lying to us. And also, if these bastards really do drink adrenochrome, it would make sense for them to have their own farm of children.
Yeah, I mean, the movies are there to brainwash people, to desensitize them. That's why now when people hear these stories, they've seen them in movies and they're like, nah, can't be real.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of why they have these movies come out. It's just to brainwash everybody. That's what's going on.
And also, the butterfly is shaped like the human hips. As far as the Butterfly Trust goes, there's a lot more going on with all of that. It was J.P. Morgan and Epstein, human trafficking, Butterfly Trust. They had to pay the victims $300 million. But meanwhile, who was trafficked where? I know a lot of girls were trafficked. But why are there no more names on the flight logs? Why, where are all the victims? That's
like you said, with the flight logs, it doesn't mean people weren't on it. A lot of people were not on it. They didn't have to write everyone's names down. Yeah.
And also, if there were 200 victims that were paid out from this fund, you'd expect more girls to be speaking out. But why don't they? Why not more girls speaking out? I wouldn't expect all girls to speak out because obviously, people value their privacy and, not everyone's able to speak out. A lot of people are too traumatized. A lot of people are dead.
They're scared. They're scared to speak out. That's the truth.
Yeah. You're right. Well, it's very dodgy.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to speak out.
Well, I live in Africa, so that's why it's a bit easier for me. That's another thing with this contract they were trying to get me to sign. They said that I'd have to come to America for hearings, and I can't come to America again, unfortunately. I just can't.
It's kind of risky, yeah.
Well, it's hard for me to even leave my house. I've had a lot of scary incidents happening. I've been followed by a white van with black windows, and I've had my tires sliced. Even when I've gone to the beach, I've been followed and had people taking photographs of us. And I'm not being like paranoid. I am generally a bit of a paranoid person, but I've had a few too many weird incidents happen.
Did you ever hear anybody talk about anything that was kind of weird that you just kind of feel like, what the hell was that during this time?
No, they were very clever about like, they didn't, because I only really saw them at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and when I was called to the room. It's not like we were ever sitting in a group like while he was like doing his work or anything like that, you
So you
know?
were isolated. You were isolated, and then you said you
Yeah.
never saw any alcohol, nothing like that.
No, 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 absolutely not. I never saw anyone have a drink. Not Epstein, not Maxwell. I never saw anyone touch alcohol.
Yeah, they were
Maybe
doing
I
everything
saw,
in private.
I might have seen Maxwell drinking a glass of red wine once, actually. Maybe one time I saw her with red wine because I was like, oh my God, I wish I could have some. But, I wasn't allowed any. Cheers to that. Now I can. Haha. Sorry. It's nice to be free.
Yeah, I mean, now speaking the truth is that's what has to happen. We got to just keep
And
exposing them.
and and Jerry, another thing is also, with JP Morgan, the Disney princesses, why did they use codename Snow White, Beauty and the Beast? Down the rabbit hole we go. Why did Virginia Gifford die on Alice Day? Virginia Gifford always reminded myself and Maria Farmer of Alice in Wonderland. Also, it's like Alice in Wonderland, down the rabbit hole we go. Also, Alice, if you change the C to a V, it's alive in Wonderland. Maybe we're all genetic experiments at the end of the day, for all we know. You know, the world we're
Yeah.
living in. It's like,
Well,
how are we supposed to know anything?
they did a giant science experiment on everybody with COVID.
Horrific. Bill Gates, yes, trying to poison everyone off. Because what they want to do is they want to murder people and then they want to bring robots in.
That's part of their religion. That's one thing I wanted to really say is like it's a battle of good versus evil. A lot of people think that they know that it's evil. They don't know that. These people, it's their religion. They think what they're doing is good. They do think that they're more superior than us, but like it's passed down through generation to generation, and they believe that it's good for them what they're doing. They
They
don't
believe
know
that
that
we're
it's
worth it.
yeah. It's not like they
Sorry.
don't. It's not evil for them. Like to do these rituals and stuff. They don't see it as evil. They see it as just a part of that's their ritual. That's what they know. That they believe that they're supposed to be building this hybrid god. And I know you were saying that you think it's like alien, from another planet. But based on what I've concluded from my research is that they're interdimensional beings, and that they're engineering their hybrid god. So this will be the Antichrist, and it's going to be in digital form. It's going to happen in less than 6 months now. That they're going to be
What if we're
make
opposite?
they're gonna the ritual's complete. They've summoned their demon, but they need to connect it to the AI. AI is gonna be like the brain, and they're gonna do it through CERN, which is gonna be the gateway to make this happen. They're also waiting for the quantum computing to be able to handle this plasma consciousness that they've summoned. It needs a quantum computer to be able to do it. And that's where we're headed. We're headed towards a digital form of the Antichrist, and then later they're going to make it into flesh and blood. It will be flesh and blood later on, maybe in a few years, but now it's arriving in digital form soon, in 6 months. That's what I am estimating and predicting.
But Jerry, what if it's not the Antichrist? What if it's an angel instead?
Well, it can't be. It can't be. Not with what they're
Yes, it
doing.
can.
Not with what they're doing, because based on all the things that they've been doing, and the ritual that was on the chalkboard, it's demonic. So stories like yours are the cracks in like the foundation of their lies. To all the survivors that are watching, we just want to tell them that you're not crazy and you're not alone.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the more victims who speak out, the better. A lot of us have been censored. Like the mainstream media haven't interviewed me. The only time I was interviewed by the BBC, they basically cut out Bill Clinton's name. They said that it took away from the emotional impact. So they made it sound like I jumped on an airplane with a random man called Jeffrey Epstein, to the island. They cut out that I was taken to New York. They cut everything out, basically. So, the thing is that a lot of the victims haven't been able to speak out, and that's who we're speaking for, is all victims, not just victims of Epstein, but victims of many atrocious things that have happened And if the media won't interview Epstein victims, then who will they interview? Then how do we know what's really going on? Because it seems like they're all lying to us. This is like when I started speaking out on X initially, they basically blocked my account many times because they don't want victims speaking out. Because, I was able to find a platform on X, which I'm so grateful for. And I'm grateful to Elon Musk for that, even though I'm not sure about him. But, at least I had a platform to speak. So also, I've done marketing. I've sold property. I've got my own website. I'm used to like marketing, and I know how to sort of strategize things. What about other girls who don't know how to get online or speak out? And also, what about the girls who can't even speak English? Because when I was in Paris, there were a lot of models in the corridors there, like staying in rooms, and these girls couldn't speak English. So how are people supposed to, and also for the victims that are still alive, where are all the victims? And like Joey said, sorry to blab on and on, people need to start speaking out because there's great strength in numbers, and there are more of us than there are of them.
Yeah, that's how we're going to defeat them, is by exposing them, by sharing these stories. That's why it's really important what you're doing. You're very brave, and thank you for your bravery and honesty, because it's very effective in cracking their foundation of lies. That's our main mission, is to expose it. It's
And
not
also
because people.
everyone
It's
has
not just a conspiracy. This is reality of what's happening, and everyone needs to be aware of that. So we're just raising awareness.
And everyone must do their own research, like you do, Joey. You're amazing at doing research and actually finding out more. And, instead of watching movies or watching the news, rather get your phone out and start researching what you're interested in, or, looking for the truth in Earth.
We're gonna definitely do more of these and dig deep into rabbit holes. Not just Epstein. We're gonna go into other rabbit holes, because I got a lot
Brainwashing.
of questions, and you do amazing research. So I think
You're amazing.
together we can figure out a lot of weird things.
Oh, definitely. And especially a lot of the viewers, people listening and watching, they will also help us hugely. That's why we do this, so that we all come together and find truth together.
100%.
Because there are many pieces to this puzzle, this weird puzzle of life.
That's our main mission. That's what we're
Jumping
exposing.
down the rabbit hole. We jump into the rabbit hole and we claw our way back out.
It's the only way to
That's
do
the
it.
other thing. If you think about Alice in Wonderland and like genetic experiments, it's like, like eat the mushroom, grow small, or I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff with Alice in Wonderland, right? And also, like as far as Epstein and JP Morgan and the Disney princesses goes, there are a lot of stories of transformation within the Disney princesses, like the Little Mermaid gives up her voice to become a human. It's basically like a sort of sea reptile, I suppose. I love mermaids. Um, the beast becomes a human, also the princess and the frog, Swan Lake. It's all transformation, much like I saw Epstein transform in front of my eyes. So when you start to dig into the rabbit hole, we jump down there with Alice in Wonderland, follow the white rabbit, like the white rabbit in the Matrix. Remember, they like follow the white rabbit, and the woman's got the white rabbit on her shoulder. Also like Neo, the one. If you anagram Neo, it is one. So it's like, okay, what kind of a weird world are we living in? Are we stuck in a computer chip or what? I don't think we are. I believe in Earth. I believe
I
in
think
love.
there's realms. I think we're in a realm, and there's 7 realms, and the 8th one is hidden. That's what I'm
Well, it's the
concluding.
senses. It's like the sixth sense is the psychic ability. The Sixth Sense, the movie with Bruce Willis and that little boy who, and I mean, goddamn, Bruce Willis has gone through a hard time. He's an excellent actor. The little boy in that movie, Sixth Sense, is one of the men in Blink Twice. He's one of the ghastly pedos. He's become like a big fat blimp. Sorry to be cruel. I mean, I don't want to be mean, but it's like, that little boy's become it's like you got to look at these actors and you realize, Jesus Christ, what's going on? Much like with Britney Spears, what's going on there?
They always send the celebrities to the same rehabilitation center or similar ones, and then they come out just completely brainwashed.
I met one of Bieber's bodyguards, and he told me, he's a friend of mine. And I said, I mean, on Instagram, I met him when he was in Cape Town. And I messaged him about all the stuff, and he said he hopes they catch those demons. So, if Bieber's bodyguard is admitting this, and then he sent me a video about child trafficking.
Wow,
A lot of people are waking up to all of this. And as we know, there's a lot more going on. You know, Hollywood's a big business, and these people are demons.
So we got to slay all the demons. That's our mission.
Yeah, we'll slay them all, Jay. I mean, Jay. Joey is Jay. Sorry. Do
You can
people
call me
call you
Jay.
Jay? Yeah. Do people call you Jay? Yeah, we'll slay them, Jay. And I'm also Jay. It's
Yeah.
Jay. We'll slay them. Because yeah, the world should be a much happier place than it is. And people have been treated like shit. And it's about time that we start to stand up for our rights. Because, you know, you get slaves, you get poor slaves, you get rich slaves. A lot of rich people don't even realize that they're slaves, yet in fact, they're slaves to the banks.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to sort out. You know, they're like, look how they can just flick off the switch. Like it happened in Spain recently, you remember? Spain and Portugal and parts of France where they just put the switch off. No one could access their banks. The trains all went off.
Well, that's
You know, so
they're getting
they
ready for
adopt-
Project Bluebeam. The first phase
Yeah,
of that
well-
is the blackout. They're going to black everything out. They're going to shut down the electrical grid. That's the first phase of it. Everything is prepping for that right now. COVID was the test run. Now they're prepping for the real thing. Their hybrid god, they're summoning, they're engineering, they're building, and Project Bluebeam ties right into that.
Yeah, but what about the spaceship that's heading to Earth? You know?
I don't think it's a ship.
Well, I saw a photo of it. It looks really beautiful. It's like all these rainbow colors. I was like, God damn, if those are the aliens coming, don't worry, guys. They're nice. Well, you know,
It's not.
I know Epstein turned into an alien. I'm not scared of aliens.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of anything anymore. Not after everything I've been through.
Well, when I was a kid, I used to have nightmares about aliens. I was stabbing them in the big black eyes. They were invading my house, I guess the world. I took a fork and I stabbed it in the eye. It's like it popped. And
Good for you, Joey. You see, that's what you do. Like, people don't need to be scared of sort of demons and stuff because they only really exist in our minds. Like, is a demon going to come and actually attack you physically? I mean, it can happen through a human. You just got to be careful with the humans you're hanging around because, yes, people can be possessed.
well, we do the research and we connect the dots. Look at the bigger picture. You can't be focused on the little things. You got to put everything together side by side and review it and analyze and be able to come to the most logical conclusion.
Yeah, well, instead of watching a movie, people should rather go and do some research. Go look up bloodlines, go look up aliens, look at ancient aliens. There's some amazing shows online, in fact. Go look up cloning on 60 Minutes. I mean, this is what I do. I don't watch movies. I don't want brain filth because it's like junk food for the brain. It's like eating McDonald's all day if you sit there watching crap. So it's time to wake up, basically.
If you want to say anything, any final things, you could say it now.
Well, I just want to tell people to be kind to each other and rather focus on good than bad. Look after your families, look after animals, be kind. The world's changing and it's time for goodness. You know, and mostly look after children.
And thank you so much for speaking the truth and for your courage. It's dangerous, but we got to expose them. I mean, if it wasn't for you, who else would do it? You're literally the last survivor. So thank you.
Love you, Joey. Thank
Love
you
you
so
too.
much. You're amazing. Thank you for being an amazing friend. for
You're
helping.
amazing. You're amazing. We're going to do a lot more. We're going to do a lot of stuff. It's going to be awesome.
Definitely. Thank you to
Hell
everyone
yeah.
for listening.